Hello and welcome back to another lesson from Soflex Math. First, I'd like to start with a congratulations. For those of you who've been with us from the start, we're up to Unit 6, which is adding decimals. What a huge accomplishment. Great job. And remember, you can always go back and watch any of the videos, practice any of the quizzes. You can always go back and review anything that you'd like to throughout the course. All right, so today on this first screen, I kind of gave you the three types of adding decimal questions that we're going to answer. So our first type here is a whole number in a decimal plus a whole number in a decimal. The second type is going to be a decimal, so 0 and something plus a whole number in a decimal. And then the third type is going to be a decimal plus a decimal, so no wholes, so 0 and. Just real quick as a review also, we'll just read these. We're not going to solve them on this page. We'll go to another page to solve them, but let's practice reading them. So 6 and 3/10 plus 2 and 4/10, 0 and 37/100 plus 8 and 4/10, and then finally 0 and 46/100 plus 0 and 782 thousandths. So that's just kind of a review of our place values, how to read numbers, and especially how to read decimals. And when we get to our next slide here, you'll see that the whole goal, or how you have to add decimals, is a little different than the multiplying or dividing. For this one, we have to line up our decimal points and line up every single place value. So we need to make sure that the ones are lined up, the tenths are lined up, and so on. So we'll kind of show you that on our next slide. Okay, so if you look here, a lot of times they'll write this number horizontally or across because they want to see if you're able to line up your decimals and add it vertically. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take our numbers of 9 and 1/10 and 4 and 2/10, and we're just going to rewrite them, making sure that we line up our decimal point. That's kind of the key here. So the first thing you can do is make sure that you have your ones lined up, the decimals are lined up, and the tenths are lined up. Once you have that accomplished, then we're just going to work on adding from right to left, just like you'd add normal numbers. So we would do the same way we'd add 91 plus 42. So we can definitely carry numbers across, so we don't just stop because we're at a decimal point. We can add these now like normal. So once you line up your decimals, this becomes a really easy problem. So as you can see here, 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, and 9 plus 4 is 13. So our answer is 13 and 3/10. So we have to make sure our tenths are lined up, the decimals are lined up, and in this case the ones are lined up. So as we go through the different types where we have different amount of place values, we just have to make sure that all our place values are lined up. Let's look at another type of decimal adding question. All right, our second example, or second type, is, as we said, where we have a decimal, which is 0 and 4/10, so no holes, plus a number that does have a hole in a decimal, 3 and 9/10. So once again, I've started out by rewriting the problem, making sure that my decimal is lined up, and then the ones column and the tenths column. Okay, and this is an example where we can carry across the decimal. So 9 plus 4 is 13. So I can, just like I would do normal adding problems, I'm going to carry that 1 over the 13. Okay, and now we have 1 plus 0 plus 3, or 4. So the answer to this problem would be 4 and 3/10. So as you can see, adding decimals really is pretty simple as long as you line up the decimal point. If not, that's where we're going to get into some troubles. So we're going to do another one where we have some different place value amounts. So here it's been nice because we've had, you know, exact same numbers of wholes and exact same numbers of decimals, but what happens when we have different amounts? So let's take a look at an example like that. Okay, and then our third type is the decimal by a decimal. So we have 2 decimal places and 3 decimal places. So for this first one, we have 0 and 62/100 plus 0 and 592 thousandths. So I've rewrote it, but I'm going to show you how it doesn't line up perfect. And this is where some people get in trouble. So instead of lining up decimals, people want to line up the numbers on the right. So they would put the 2 above the 2 and the 6 above the 9. Nope, we need to line up ones, decimals, so we can put our decimal down. And then we have to line up the ones, the tenths, the hundredths, and the thousandths. And like we did earlier, we have no problem. We can add a 0 here as a placeholder because 62 hundredths is the exact same thing as 620 thousandths. So that 0 is okay. I like to put that in there just so when we're lining things up, it looks nice. So there's one number, in each section. So now we're just going to add like normal. So let's go ahead and add 2 plus 0. 9 plus 2 is 11. Carry the 1. 6, 7 plus 5 is 12. And we carry that across. So our answer here is 1 and 212 thousandths. So as we're working through these, please make sure that you are practicing reading the numbers correctly as well as writing the answers and solving the actual problems. All right, one last problem where we have a combination of different place values in the wholes and in the decimals. One last practice. All right, let's look at our last example here and kind of look what I've done. So we started out with 57 and 2/10. So that's our problem, 57 and 2/10 plus 6 and 853 thousandths. So I'm going to line up my decimal, and I want you to look at the zeros that I put in here. I put 2 zeros here and 1 0 over here. Okay, the reason I did that is to make sure that every place value is easy to line up, even if there's just a 0 placeholder, because this 0 does not change the value. 0.6 is the same as 6, and 2/10 is the same as 200 thousandths. It's the same amount. So we can put zeros on the end or zeros in front of the last number we have. Either way, it's going to be the same value. So I now have 10 lined up, ones, decimals, tenths, hundredths, and thousandths all lined up. So we just really want to make sure that we can put these zeros in just so it looks nice. That way we don't accidentally write our numbers in the wrong place values. All right, the adding, once we get that far, is pretty simple. 3 plus 0, 5 plus 0, 8 plus 2 is 10. So we'll carry that 1 over. So 7, 8 plus 6 is 14. Carry the 1 over again. 5 plus 1 is 6. So our answer for our final problem is 64 and this we just read 53 thousandths. So we don't have to say 64 and 0 and 53 thousandths. Nope, we're just going to read it as 53 thousandths. All right, so thanks for joining Soflex Math, and good luck, and ask questions if you have any.